Where did we learn that eating 3 meals per day was the best thing to do? Where did we learn that eating 3 meals per day would be the best for fat loss? Where did we learn that 3 meals per day would be the best for the brain? I mean, outside of just maybe historically what we've done, we've consumed breakfast, lunch, and dinner for however long we can remember, but why are we still doing this and assuming that this is the best thing for our health? Well, we're going to talk about the dangers of not occasionally fasting. Now, I'm not talking about doing 18-hour fasts or even 16-hour fasts. I'm talking about just not occasionally doing even a 12-hour fast. And I'm not going to try to fear monger and say like everyone needs to do it, and if you're not doing it, you're going to fall apart. There's plenty of people that don't fast that are healthy. But my point here is suggesting things you might be missing out by not fasting. So where did we get this whole 3 meals per day thing? Well, there's a study that was published in the British Journal of Nutrition a while back that took a look at just a hair under 2,000 people. And what it did is it found that, okay, well, when subjects ate less than 3 meals per day, they had a higher chance of central adiposity, so a higher risk of abdominal fat in men. Interestingly, not really in women. But we've been taking this to the bank as some gospel for quite a while, saying, well, no, if we start eating less than 3 meals per day, we're going to gain fat. Well, here's what's interesting about that particular study. Eating less meals was also associated with higher alcohol consumption, smoking, and lower physical activity. Can I sense reverse causation here? Reverse causation means that we don't know this cohort of people. So these people may have just been inactive, smoking drinkers that just so happen to not eat that much. But they have all these other risk factors, right? The other piece is that reverse causation, we don't know if these people were already obese and were eating 1 or 2 meals in an effort to try to lose weight. It was epidemiological. They weren't looking at intervention and seeing how things were progressing. They were looking at, oh, wait, here's a bunch of people that eat less are typically overweight. In reality, it was probably something more like, these are overweight people and they're trying to lose weight, but we're going to take a snapshot in time and tell you that they're overweight because they eat 1 or 2 meals per day. But interestingly enough, we look at another study that was published in the journal Nutrition that took a look at over 50,000 people, and this one found that consuming less than 3 meals was dramatically associated with less BMI, reductions in BMI. And 3 meals or more in a dose-dependent fashion, the more meals that were consumed, the more the increase in BMI. Interesting. They also found that the longer the overnight fast, all the way up to 18 hours, the better the overall reduction in BMI. And the shorter the overnight fast, the more the increase in BMI. So when you look at really large-scale data, but these two studies really oppose each other. One was pretty flawed and pretty weak, but we also have to look at the fact that what people eat matters as well, right? So it's not just a matter of timing. But let's dive into the very basics of this. By not fasting, you simply risk overeating. That's the simplest thing to say. And it makes all parties happy. The calories in, calories out crowd, the carb insulin model crowd. The less opportunity that we have to eat, the more opportunity we have to lose weight. So by simply not fasting, you're missing out on easy caloric restriction. And I say easy because fasting is very black and white and very easy. So let's get that one out of the way. But now let's talk hunger hormones for a second. Okay, we've got PYY, which increases to satiate us. And then we have ghrelin, which increases and makes us hungry. Well, with this, we look at a study that took a look specifically at early time restricted feeding, a relatively new study. And it found that when subjects early time restricted fed, like when they restricted, basically stopped eating after a certain amount of time or a certain point in the afternoon and fasted through the evening, they ended up having decreases in ghrelin and increases in PYY and increases in fatty acid oxidation. Wow, okay, they were more satiated. Not only that, they also had increases in fatty acid oxidation because their insulin levels were lower. What does this mean? It means they didn't want to eat as much, naturally. So they probably ate less and lost more calories. You know how else you can increase this even more? By making sure the meals that you are eating are rich in protein. That's going to increase PYY even more, and that's going to decrease ghrelin even more. Now, hunger is one of the most complicated things in science as far as nutrition goes. It is extremely complicated, and we know practically nothing other than these tiny little fragments, little fractions of things. But we do know that ghrelin's important. We do know that these gut incretins like GLP-1 and PYY are very important. But protein is going to be key no matter what diet you're doing. I popped the link down below for ButcherBox if you want to try some good quality grass-fed, grass-finished meat. They are a sponsor on this channel and on this video, but no one's really going to hate on me for talking about good quality steak. So there's a link right down below that can get you grass-fed, grass-finished meat. They've got chicken, they've got beef, they've got sockeye salmon. The salmon's not grass-fed, that would be weird. But anyhow, that link down below is a special link for ButcherBox. It gets delivered to your doorstep. Definitely recommend you check them out. Yeah, you can get steak anywhere, okay, no doubt, but I've gotta say that their steak is the best tasting steak that I have. Okay, their filet mignons are literally better than a lot of the restaurant filet. There's only one restaurant filet mignon that I've had that I think tastes better than ButcherBox, and it was like a $75 steak. So the point is they are an awesome bargain for what you get, and that link down below is a special link to check them out. So check them out after this video. Let's talk insulin regulation. If you're not fasting, you're missing out on lower levels of insulin. Now, some side of the argument is going to say, insulin doesn't matter. It's all calories in, calories out. Calories in, calories out still matter in my opinion. Some people will disagree with that. But insulin can certainly sway that entire conversation of how thermodynamics works. Okay? Because if insulin levels are lower, thermodynamics is still at play, perhaps. But if insulin levels are lower, you have a higher chance of utilizing the fat as fuel because insulin inhibits lipolysis. So if insulin is inhibiting lipolysis and stopping fat from burning, if you're restricting calories, you're still losing weight, but there's no guarantee you're going to lose fat. You might be losing muscle tissue too. Whereas if you drop insulin levels, you have a higher likelihood of fat oxidation in the same thermodynamic energy balance equation. What this simply means is you're missing out on that. There's a study that was published in the journal Endocrinology that took a look at fasting intervention, and they found that after an intermittent fasting intervention for just a couple of months, there was huge reductions in insulin resistance, reductions in fasting glucose, and reductions in HbA1c. So dramatic decreases to change HbA1c. So that simply means insulin levels are lower. So you're just missing out on this. So maybe not fasting even a couple days per week is really standing in the way. Maybe you're one of these people that just needs that, and simply by adding like a 12-hour fast 2 days per week is just what you need. The other piece of the equation is cognitive decline, or at least cognitive benefit, right? So when we look at some research, we find that there is some pretty strong association between intermittent fasting and brain function, especially when we look at it with rats. Now hear me out, because I've got human model data too. This study was published in Brain Sciences, and it looked at intermittent fasting intervention for 3 months with rats. Okay, and with this, they found that when these rats were fasting, they had decreases in insulin resistance, but increases in BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This sounds like lip service because we hear people throw these terms around all the time, but this was actually a pretty monumental finding, even though it's in rats. Because we cannot study humans and look at their brain tissue when they are living. So we cannot have a human go fast and then take a sample of their brain. But with rats, we were able to do this. And they found an increase directly in the brain of BDNF in the intermittent fasting intervention group. We cannot 100% say that this is going to translate to humans, but we can probably say with pretty decent certainty that it probably does, based upon a newer paper that was published in 2022 in Frontiers in Neuroendocrinology. This was interesting because it analyzed 82 papers, and of these 82 papers, it determined that intermittent fasting has a huge effect on neuroplasticity, which is the ability to really change our brain, change and kind of improve our brain in general, but also increases in BDNF expression. BDNF expression means at a genetic level, we are producing more BDNF. Will that make it to the brain? Well, considering it's specifically created for the brain, I'm going to assume it probably did, but I can never say with 100% certainty that it did. It also improved the adaptive stress response. So what that means is it helped improve all these matters of resiliency in and out of the brain, looking at 82 different studies. So this is really, really big. So even if you're not trying to lose weight, do you think that perhaps by not fasting occasionally, you're missing out on some cognitive benefits? I mean, that's a pretty big thing. BDNF grows neurons. It grows this entire network. It improves neuroplasticity. It improves neural networks. It improves potentially network stability. All these things that are very important for brain function. Now, one of the most important things we got to talk about that's just big for a lot of people is you're not burning fat while you sleep as much. Now, that's kind of cheeky. I get it. I totally get it. That sounds a little far-fetched. You're going to burn fat while you sleep if you're in a caloric deficit more than likely. But you could definitely make a strong argument that if your insulin levels are lower when you go to bed, you're probably going to be deeper into that fat burning state. Are you still burning fat when you sleep even though you're not moving? Yeah, I mean, your resting metabolic rate doesn't go to zero just because you're asleep. Okay, brain activity goes up sometimes. Well, it doesn't go up from when you're awake, but it increases quite a bit still throughout sleep. Now, the point is that you have cell repair, you have all kinds of stuff that is creating a demand for energy. So just because you're asleep doesn't mean you're not using energy. And if your insulin levels are lower, you can tap into that lipolysis a little bit faster. Albeit, it's small potatoes in the grand scheme of things, but I don't know, that's kind of like free money, right? It's like, who doesn't want to burn some fat while they sleep? So here's my suggestion to you. If you already fast, you know what to do. Keep doing it. If you're new to fasting, try 12-hour fasts like 3 or 4 days per week. And if you really like that, then just try eating in 12-hour blocks. You can still eat 7 meals per day. I don't care what you do, but try eating in 12-hour blocks. And that way you get some of these benefits without being an intermittent fasting person and having to jump on the bandwagon and have to be concerned with people saying, oh, you're a faster now. You don't have to join our group. Don't have to join our tribe, but try bits and pieces of it because you might be missing out. See you tomorrow.